of our Founder Acharya series. We call it our Srila Prabhupada. Damayanti.
On May 11, 1969, the American counterculture poet Allen Ginsberg met with Srila Prabhupada at the Hare Krishna Temple in Columbus, Ohio, to discuss their program at the university the following evening, as well as how Krishna consciousness could spread widely in materialistic America. Referring to a prophetic text from the Brahma Vaivarta Purana, Prabhupada assured the poet that people everywhere will take advantage of Krishna for the next 10,000 years.
Ginsberg had seen Prabhupada rouse crowds to chant Hare Krishna in New York and San Francisco, but the conservative students at the Ohio State University would present a special challenge. In his book, The Hare Krishna Explosion, Hayagriva Prabhu describes what happened on the night of the event. After entering the auditorium, Prabhupada, smiling and glowing, ascended the stage where poet Ginsberg invited him to lead the chanting. Prabhupada started slowly, singing a simple melody, and gradually picked up the tempo while playing hand cymbals. Then, and this is directly from the book, quote, Prabhupada stands and raises his hands, inviting the students also to stand and dance. The response is immediate. Students in the aisles are first to their feet. Then students in the rows and balconies arise. This auditorium is Judson Auditorium at Ohio State, and it had a capacity of about 1,500 to be in there, according to the fire codes. There were over 2,000 people packed into this auditorium, professors, students, townies. We call them townies in America, people who live in the college town. Packed. There is little room for dancing. A spontaneous bounce catches hold instead. As Prabhupada bounces on the dais, the students bounce also. As he waves his arms, they wave theirs. He leads them as a maestro conducts an orchestra, until gradually the inherent spiritual rhythm of the mantra itself prevails. The young voices, empowered by the mantra, not even knowing the meaning of the words. As Ginsberg later reflected, quote, the amazing fact is that everybody was able to get up and dance, nearly leaping out of their skins. He was afraid that conservative Columbus people wouldn't relate to the Swami very well. But they all just went wild. Because Prabhupada was just so expert in getting them to chant and dance. Before the event, had Prabhupada cited the relevant Puranic verses directly preceding the 10,000-year prophecy he mentioned, poet Ginsberg may have proclaimed Prabhupada their fulfiller. So here's what the verse looks like from the Brahma Vaivarta Purana.
Who predicted our founder Acharya's advent? After 5,000 years, my mantra upasaka, worshipper of the holy name, will appear in this world and spread the chanting of my holy name everywhere.
So who predicted? Krishna predicted. While fulfilling this and other Vedic prophecies, Prabhupada never once called attention to himself, instead calling everyone's attention to Krishna. Prabhupada called it the Hare Krishna movement, not the Bhaktivedanta Swami movement. Over the millennia, the Lord would set the stage of world history to send his, quote, worshipper of the holy names, excuse me, to just the right place at just the right time to launch the worldwide Hare Krishna movement alone.
Alone in America, Srila Prabhupada aimed to revive Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's Gaudiya mission.
Yeah, his intention, Prabhupada's intention when he came on that ship was not to start something new. He just wanted to revive the Gaudiya mission, the Gaudiya Math, the Gaudiya Sangha. When Prabhupada's spiritual master, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, dispatched the first Vaishnav preachers from India to Europe in the 1930s, he gave them the full institutional support of his Gaudiya mission. But after Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's demise in 1937, the mission's leaders neglected their master's instructions to form a governing body and work cooperatively to spread Krishna consciousness. The infighting that ensued so fragmented the mission that by the time Prabhupada arrived in America to preach in 1965, almost 30 years later, there was no institution left to support him. In New York City, with almost no friends or funds, Prabhupada nonetheless saw a fertile preaching field in materially prosperous America, where people were spiritually starving and looking to the East for truth. My generation, we were all looking to the East. We were reading books like Journey to the East, Siddhartha, by Hermann Hesse, and Be Here Now, and all these things that were inspired by gurus, swamis, yogis. Hopeful of reviving the cooperative spirit that had once galvanized the Gaudiya mission, Prabhupada began writing his now isolated godbrothers. There he is, writing. Of course, that was taken later, because nobody was there to take a picture then. Appealing to them to help him seize the time. The following excerpt from one such letter to the mission's former manager is telling. So there's many letters on the database. You see Prabhupada writing his godbrothers, but this one is especially significant. Okay, this is an excerpt from that letter. This is Prabhupada appealing to one of his godbrothers.
I came here to study the situation, and I find it very nice, and if you are also agreeable to cooperate, it will be all very nice by the will of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Prabhupada. If you agree, then take it for granted that I am one of the workers of Sri Mayapur Chaitanya Math. I have no ambition for becoming the proprietor of any math or mandir, but I want working facilities.
Yeah, so Bhaktivilas Tirtha Maharaj, he was in charge of the Sri Chaitanya Mayapur Math. And he had prevailed in the courts, so he had succeeded in getting a lot of the assets of the Gaudiya Math. He was a very shrewd operator. So here it is, almost 30 years later, and Prabhupada knows that in the time of the Gaudiya Math, Bhaktivilas Tirtha Maharaj, who was known as Kunja Babu, Kunja Bihari Prabhu, he was expert in fundraising. He knew how to inspire these crore-patis, these Calcutta Marwaris, to give donations. And so Prabhupada, he knows that. And he's telling him elsewhere in the letter, he says, look, these Americans, they're mad after anything from India. But they're getting cheated by the Ramakrishna people, the Mayavadis who have come, and they've reimagined their Ramakrishna mission in America. They call it the Vedanta Society. It still exists. And they're teaching Mayavad. And they've got $1 million skyscraper here. Prabhupada said, $1 million. We need a skyscraper too, and to give them the real thing. These people are being cheated. And look, I can organize, I can recruit people. I just need funds. And you can do it, Tirtha Maharaj. You had those, I remember you had those Calcutta Marwaris in the palm of your hand. And you also have the contacts in the government house in India to get the rupees released in America as dollars. So let's do it. So, and then look what he's saying. And you can be in charge. I have no ambition for being. If you agree, then take it for granted that I am one of the workers of the Sri Mayapur Chaitanya Math. You're in charge. I'm just one of your workers. But I want working facilities. He needs a place, he's saying. A quote, servant leader, long before the phrase's time, Prabhupada would still receive no tangible cooperation from his godbrothers. With only the scriptures he translated, annotated, and brought from India to sustain him, Prabhupada endured, mostly alone, the brutal New York winter that followed, writing letters and translating the Bhagavad Gita. So at that point, Prabhupada is still, he's trying to revive the Gaudiya Math. That's what he's doing. Okay, so but he's toiling in obscurity. Nobody knows him. So, but he's undaunted. He's not afraid. Yeah.
From obscurity to Swamiji.
Okay, so 65, obscurity. 66, he becomes Swamiji to his first followers. This lesson is all about how Lord Chaitanya is gradually revealing to Prabhupada what he wants Prabhupada to do, and Prabhupada realizing, okay, and then Prabhupada's gradually revealing to us his position, very gradually, spoon-feeding his first followers. The following spring, Prabhupada relocated to a loft in New York's infamous Bowery district. Then it was a very dangerous place. Like, I don't know in Toronto, but think of the most dangerous part of Toronto. So much crime, so much homelessness, so much drugs and violence. Think of that. And that's what the Bowery is, only times to the nth power. Rife with derelicts and crime, the district was dangerous, but Prabhupada took the risk to reach young seekers nearby. Because somebody told him at Dr. Mishra's place, where Prabhupada would go sometimes, on the Upper West Side, where it was very nice, and he was supported by rich people and like that. So one of them said, you know, Swamiji, we can see you're a preacher, and if you really want to reach people, the action is down on the Lower East Side. That's where the action is. That's where there's a lot of young people and artists, bohemians, you know, this word bohemian, wild people, creative people who are looking for truth and trying to express it in their different artistic ways. You should go down there. It's not pretty, but that's where you'll find people. So Prabhupada, okay, let's do it. So he got a loft that was donated by one Harvey Cohen, who became the first Haridas later. He was an artist. In the loft, Krishna sent Prabhupada a few regular listeners, including Michael Grant, who became Mukunda Maharaj eventually. A few regular listeners who came to his aid after his young LSD-crazed loft sharer attacked him, forcing him to flee. So this place, it was a loft. It was called an AIR, an artist in residence. Harvey Cohen donated, and it was big, it was wide, and there was only a divider separating one person from another. So this fellow was experimenting with hallucinogens, and he went on a bad trip once, and he got really violent. He attacked Prabhupada. Prabhupada had to run downstairs, run out of the whole building, and run into a phone booth and call Michael and said, "Michael, this isn't working. You've got to find me my own place, and then you got to bring somebody over here to get my belongings, because I don't want to go back up there with that crazy man with a knife and, oof. Forcing him to flee. When we compiled the Lilamrita, we had to change the guy's name. He didn't want us to use his actual name. What's his name? We called him David Allen. I forget who he really was. Yeah. With the regulars' help, Prabhupada at last secured his own place, a cheap storefront on the city's Lower East Side. Forced by the non-cooperation of his godbrothers, Prabhupada dropped the attempt to revive his spiritual master's institution. Lord Chaitanya is revealing, look, they're not going to help you. They can't help you. Too many offenses. They're too envious. They're older now. They're just trying to maintain themselves in their little isolated mutts. You've got to go it alone, but we'll help you. Lord Chaitanya is the message from Lord Chaitanya and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta and the six Goswamis. We'll help you. Don't worry. You're going to have to start something new. Forced by the non-cooperation of his godbrothers, Prabhupada dropped the attempt to revive his spiritual master's institution, and instead, at 26 Second Avenue, on July 13th, 1966, he officially launched, quote, the International Society, in this little hole in the wall, right, storefront, International Society for Krishna Consciousness, a brand new branch of the same Gaudiya Sampradaya. Right. That was when he officially incorporated ISKCON. Okay, here we go.
Empowered by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his spiritual forefathers, Prabhupada inspired a growing flock of followers that summer to chant Hare Krishna and take up the process of Bhakti Yoga. No small miracle in 1960s New York City, the capital of do your own thing.
Oh. He did it by stressing the do's more than the don'ts, the chanting more than the taboos. He had faith that as Krishna filled the consciousness of his young aspirants, they would outgrow their old ways and savor the higher taste of devotional service. It worked.
By late November, after a few groups of devotees had received initiation, one of the earlier initiates approached Prabhupada. Swamiji, what did you say the rules are for this practice? Just what Prabhupada had been waiting to hear, for he knew they would follow the rules only when they were ready. The next day, November 27, 1966, Prabhupada posted the regulative principles of Krishna consciousness on his apartment's bathroom door.
Bathroom door. Why did he do that? Why did he post it on his bathroom door?
Because everyone was using the same bathroom.
Yeah. And they were using Prabhupada's towel even. They were so unconscious. Right? So Prabhupada knew that they're going to see this notice if I post it on the bathroom door where they all go. Okay. And here's what, and we know the date because Prabhupada put the date right on the notice. There's the famous, maybe you've seen this. Maybe, I mean, it's hard to read here, but. Yeah, it's in, all initiated devotees must attend morning and evening classes. That's the first thing he said. It's a positive. Must not be addicted to any kinds of intoxicants, including coffee, tea, and cigarettes. Must not. They must be strictly vegetarian. Should not mix intimately with non-devotees. And they should have no illicit sexual connections in there. Something like that. Yeah. So, okay. On his bathroom door, yeah. So then they all read it, and they were like, whoa. Is this what we signed up for? Oh my God. No illicit sex? Wow. Huh? It's like, what? Once in a month just for having children? Well, why even bother? Very good boy, very good boy. Hare Krishna. And did I tell you about? So Hayagriva said that, and then no intoxicants, down to coffee, tea, and cigarettes. So Swamiji had said chocolate was an intoxicant. So Hayagriva said, "You mean no more chocolate milkshakes? Swamiji." So Prabhupada knew how to handle Hayagriva. So he said, this chocolate, do they give it to children? Oh, yes. It's in candy bars and, ice cream. And well, it can't be all bad. It can't be all bad. So you can have your chocolate. He didn't want to discourage him. He was willing to work with him, right? And then, of course, eventually, he got a higher taste. Did I tell? Okay, here's one, too. The higher taste. So that summer they had all been, this is like in November, 20, but that summer before there was initiation, they had all been chanting Hare Krishna. And why were they chanting Hare Krishna? Because they were all trying to get high. That was the motive, because they were all experimenting with, psychoactive substances and stuff. And so Howard, who became Hayagriva, big, large-bodied Howard, Columbus, Ohio, teaching assistant professor. So he goes, after several weeks of chanting Hare Krishna in the summer, he goes up to Swamiji and says, Swamiji, I've been chanting Hare Krishna for 6 months, and I still haven't seen the universal form. Because that's what they're looking for, some cosmic, experience, some buzz, right? So Prabhupada goes, that's all right, you keep chanting. Keep chanting, and that desire will go away. Or your LSD flashes will go away, or whatever. Just keep chanting. Ooh, okay. Why isn't it working? Is this? How come I can't go to the next slide? Oh, wait a minute. I did it there. Let's see if it works now. Okay. Yes. All right, Damayanti.
In January 1967, Prabhupada followed the counterculture trail to San Francisco, where disciples had opened ISKCON's second temple.
Yeah, he was right where he should be in the Lower East Side in 66, and now the whole energy was going to where the Flower Children were, in Haight-Ashbury, San Francisco. So, and Prabhupada's disciples had started something there. As Mukunda and Janaki were thinking they wanted to go to India, Prabhupada said, India, So just as Mukunda was leaving from New York, casually Prabhupada said, so try to start, before you go to India, try to start something in San Francisco. And he did, along with Sam and Joni and Roger, and they all became great devotees. Okay, keep reading.
There, he inspired a new wave of devotees to chant Hare Krishna and serve Lord Chaitanya's mission. As in New York, the young aspirants marveled at Prabhupada's pace. A whirlwind of chanting, teaching, worshipping, cooking, public preaching, private speaking, initiating newcomers, and translating scriptures during the wee hours, while everyone else slept.
That's the only time you could get some peace and quiet for translating, because everybody was so new and needy and, psycho, basically, that Prabhupada had to take advantage. And that was, the beginning of his severe austerities of just, doing that. And he did that until he passed away. He was translating when we all were sleeping, hardly sleeping himself. When Prabhupada returned to New York in April, so he was there January to April, and then he came back to New York. Despite his 70 plus years, the pace continued, unabated. For his first followers, this was all part of the wonder that was Swamiji. So it was quite a shock when, toward the end of May, Prabhupada suffered a heart attack and stroke. He was their absolute shelter. Now they would have to take care of him. To help Prabhupada recuperate, the devotees brought him to a beach bungalow on the Jersey shore. But the weather was gray and blustery, so with the doctor's permission, Prabhupada flew back to San Francisco, where the devotees hoped the California sunshine would heal him. But to no avail. The mountains and fog near his cottage mostly obscured the sun's rays. So Prabhupada said he would have to return to India for its Ayurvedic medicines, massage, and bracing heat. Hayagriva explains what happened next. So in Hare Krishna Explosion, and also in Mukunda Maharaj's Miracle on 2nd Avenue, this scene is described with Mukunda, Hayagriva, and Kirtanananda at this beach bungalow called El Paradiso in Marin County. Okay. And there's Prabhupada, he's not well. Okay. Yeah. Some of the devotees, worried that Swamiji has decided to go to India to leave his body, ask him whether, during his absence, one of his godbrothers should come to America to assume ISKCON leadership. The minute this question is presented to him, we sense that it is offensive. Swamiji becomes very grave, closing his eyes. Then suddenly we see tears falling down his cheeks.
My Guru Maharaj, he was no ordinary spiritual master, he says, wiping away the tears. He saved me. Later, Swamiji tells us what we should have always known. There is no one to replace him. The very idea is insulting. If someone comes and tells you something different, he says you will be confused.
Owing to his absolute surrender to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta and Lord Chaitanya's mission, Prabhupada knew he was being uniquely empowered to turn people outside India's spiritual culture toward Krishna consciousness, and that only he could lead them. That's the title of the third volume of the Lilamrita, the original series. Only he could lead them. So 65 obscurity, 66 Swamiji, 67 only he could lead them. And now we're going to another level. That's actually a photo of Prabhupada in his quarters at New Mayapur in France. I know because I gave the seminar there this time last year, September 2024. Very nice place. Although Prabhupada's uniqueness among contemporary gurus was obvious to his followers, they were still calling him Swamiji, a rather common address. In the spring of 1968, Krishna revealed a title more befitting Prabhupada's position. When a devotee learned that the Sanskrit suffix ji was a term of endearment, he asked Prabhupada if he could add it to his wife's name, Govinda, and call her Govinda ji. So in 1968, there was a husband and wife team named Govinda Dasi and Gorsundar. Gaurasundara the husband, Govinda the wife, and Govinda was Prabhupada's secretary, and Gaurasundara was the servant. And Gaurasundara he's a bright guy, a very brainy guy, and he was learning Sanskrit, and he learned that Ji was like we say Prabhuji, right? Or even Prabhupada in the books, he says Vyasaji, Naradaji. It's a term of endearment, right? So Gaurasundara says, can I call my wife Govindaji? And so, what does Prabhupada say? No. Actually, Ji is a third-class form of address. It's better not to call her Govindaji. Now, Gaurasundara and Govinda are from Texas. And so what happens next is that Govinda speaks up. And she's a very tough-talking, straight-shooting Texas lady. And so when she heard Swamiji say that her husband shouldn't call it's a third-class form of address, so Govinda Dasi, a plain-spoken Texas lady, remembers the rest. So this is taken right from her memory as recorded in the following Srila Prabhupada memory series by Yadavar. So Govinda says, so I piped up, I spoke up. I was sitting right in front of him, and I said, well, if it's a third-class form of address, why are we calling you Ji? Why are we calling you Swamiji? And he said, it's not very important. Now, what you're going to hear now, you can't even imagine anybody talking to Prabhupada like this, because Prabhupada allowed a very, I think Govinda is the only one who had this kind of relationship with Prabhupada. He let Govinda treat her as a grandfather, and even he let her scold him. So just keep that in mind as you hear what Govinda says about what happened. So Prabhupada said, it's not very important. I said, oh no, it's very important. If it's a third-class form of address, then we don't want to call you that. We want to call you the most first-class form of address. So tell us, what would be a good name for us to call you by? Now here is the teachable moment. Krishna's giving Prabhupada, it's coming from them, it's coming from his disciples now. They want to give him more respect, right? And he knows he can't force that. And they don't know anything about how to respect a guru or anything. They're just born Mlecha Yavana, no spiritual culture or anything. But now it's coming from one of his disciples. So what would be a good name for us to call you by? And then Govinda says, and he was very humble, very reluctant, but I pressed him. We've got to change this. She's pressing him, right? And he said, and now Prabhupada starts, his mood turns because he sees, okay, this is where it's coming from them. So he starts to relent and let her lead, with this. Okay? So.
You can call me Guru Deva or Guru Maharaj or Prabhupada. Govinda Dasi. Well, that's 3. We need 1. So which one is the best?
That's 3. We need 1. Come on.
Srila Prabhupada is nice. That is the best. Govinda Dasi. From today, you will be called Srila Prabhupada.
Govinda Dasi ki. Yeah. That's when it happened. May 1968. Never demanding respect, but nonetheless commanding it by his own endearing example, Prabhupada had seized Krishna's teachable moment to quietly disclose the appropriate address. In a disciplic line, there are many Gurudevs, many Guru Maharajas, but Prabhupada is a guru of gurus, a master at whose feet all masters sit. So he's distinguishing himself from the regular guru. And like he said about his own Guru Maharaj, he was no ordinary spiritual master. He saved me. Now, ordinary, how can you have it? How can a spiritual master even be ordinary? It sounds contradictory, right? But Prabhupada said that just to emphasize that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta was no ordinary or regular guru. He was like way up there. He saved me. Okay, so 65 obscurity, 66 Swamiji, 67 only he, 68 Prabhupada. Now, 2 years later, we're going to go from Prabhupada to Founder Acharya, when I joined in July 70. In just 12 years, Prabhupada would circle the globe 14 times, initiate thousands of disciples, and establish the Krishna consciousness movement on every major continent. During his travels, he would found over 100 temples, schools, farms, and restaurants, all while writing and publishing dozens of translations and commentaries on foundational Vaishnava scriptures. It was like superhuman. But success would bring enemies too, the worst from within. In 1970, after critical remarks by a few of his godbrothers negatively influenced some of ISKCON's leaders, Prabhupada asked a dozen trusted disciples to help him form a governing body commission, as Srila Bhaktisiddhanta had requested his disciples to protect ISKCON and ensure its continuance. On July 28th, a legal document called Direction of Management listed the GBC members and officially referred to, quote, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada as ISKCON's founder Acharya. Okay. And there it is.
His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, founder Acharya, International Society for Krishna Consciousness.
So if you have the database, you go in the database and you click under a file called Legal Documents, and you'll see the first thing, Directions of Management. This is when Prabhupada formed the GBC and listed himself as the founder Acharya and listed the GBC members. They were pretty much, most of them were householders because there were hardly any sannyasi, just one sannyasi, Kirtanananda. And, Shyam Sundar and Satsvarup and Karandar and different people. But bad signs persisted. On one of his books, his ISKCON Press identified the author as simply A.C. Bhaktivedanta, nearly stripping his name of any spiritual significance. Later, when his new publishing house, the Bhaktivedanta Book Trust, moved into its headquarters, Prabhupada saw nothing on the building identifying the organization's name or founder. And when some of his temple presidents wrote him on their own stationery, Prabhupada had to tell them to write him on official temple stationery, displaying his full name and founder Acharya title. For good reason. One day, a non-complying temple president secretly sold the temple, collected the money, and disappeared. The temple wasn't even in ISKCON's name, it was in his name. And he decided he wanted to leave the movement, so he was able to cash out, and he sold the place, and leaving the devotees with no place to live in Hawaii. It was in Hawaii. He, not ISKCON, had been the legal owner. So to better protect ISKCON, in the summer of 1974, Prabhupada drafted an amendment to his earlier management document, including a strongly worded statement about his position and authority as ISKCON's founder Acharya. So Prabhupada drafted the document, and
It is declared that His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada is the founder Acharya of ISKCON, International Society for Krishna Consciousness, He is the supreme authority in all matters of the society. His position cannot be occupied by anyone else, and his name and title must appear on all documents, letterheads, publications, and buildings of the society.
Yeah, and today we could add, in the digital age, we could add websites. How are we presenting Prabhupada on our websites? I was in England in 2013 and presenting Founder Acharya, a very earlier edition of this presentation. And just for fun, I went on their website to see how they were presenting Prabhupada. I couldn't even find him. He wasn't even there. And then I saw a little tab on the homepage that said History. And so I clicked on it, and there was a little picture of Prabhupada. And it said Founder Acharya. And I was like floored. There I was, there to teach about the Founder Acharya. And they hardly had him, displaying how were they thinking about Prabhupada. So I went to one of the managers. I said, Prabhu, if we think Prabhupada's history, we're history. We're not going to last. This is ridiculous. So he said, yeah, you're right. And then they kind of got it as I taught the 10 lessons. And then when I came back next year, I came back too, and then I went on their website, and there's Prabhupada on the homepage, fully displayed. So they got the message. Right. Okay. So that was in 74 that Prabhupada drafted this amendment to highlight, underscore that about his position. He's the supreme authority, and that should be recognized and everything. And that's why we have, like you have, I think, under his Vyasasana, you have the plaque.
Yes.
His Divine Grace, Founder Acharya. That's came from this. That same summer, even as Prabhupada was reasserting his supreme position in ISKCON, while translating the Sri Chaitanya Chaitamrita, he also reasserted his and his followers' fidelity to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta in Lord Chaitanya's mission. So here's an excerpt from a purport that's focusing on our relationship with our tradition. Okay.
As members of the Krishna consciousness movement, we belong to the family or disciplic succession of Saraswati Goswami, and thus we are known as Saraswatas. Obeisances are therefore offered to the spiritual master as Saraswata Deva, or a member of Saraswata family. Namaste Saraswate Deve, whose mission is to broadcast the cult of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Gauravani Pracharine, and to fight with impersonalists and voidists, Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine.
Prabhupada's connecting himself and us, his followers, to the whole parampara, Gaudiya parampara. Okay. On February, this is one of the final slides. On February 21st, 1975, in Caracas, capital of what country? No? You know? It's Prabhupada's one visit to South America. Only South America only time he was ever in a South American country. It's the top of South America. There's a country called Venezuela. Caracas. On February 21st, 1975, in Caracas, Srila Prabhupada drew an analogy between Krishna and his creation and himself as ISKCON's founder Acharya. Now, this is an audio slide. So, we don't have a wire to go in here, but maybe you can hear it anyway.
I think so.
It's going to come. I think it's pretty good. Anyway, you'll read it, and then you can, because you're reading it too, I think you'll maybe understand what Prabhupada's saying. He's making an analogy between Krishna and Krishna's creation, and he, Prabhupada, as ISKCON's founder Acharya. It's very striking. Let's see if we need to. Anyway, I'll just see if it works.
tiny child know everything directly and indirectly of all this movement. If I do not know directly and indirectly everything of this movement, then I cannot become the founder of that. And as soon as the origin becomes a knower, he is life.
So that last line, and as soon as the origin becomes a knower, he is life. He's referring back to the verse he's lecturing on, which is 111. Janma Dyasya Tonvaya. Krishna, he's the source of everything, and he's abhigya, and he's surat. He's self-aware, self-cognizant, and he's independent. So Prabhupada's making the point that just as Krishna, well, I'll just read this. In other words, as Krishna is the origin and knower of his creation, so Prabhupada is the origin and knower of ISKCON, as well as the life and soul of all generations of his followers. At the same time, whoever enriches our common identity as Prabhupada Anugas is also glorious, deepening the cooperation we'll need to take Prabhupada and Lord Chaitanya's mission to every town and village. Okay, so the final slide is our learning outcomes. Tamayanti.
Our Srila Prabhupada, learning outcomes. By now, we should be able to identify a scriptural prophecy Srila Prabhupada fulfilled. Explain why Srila Prabhupada had to start the Hare Krishna movement in America alone. Recount how Swamiji was able to recruit young Americans to his fledgling ISKCON. Recount how Swamiji revealed to his young followers that only he could lead them. Recount how Swamiji became Srila Prabhupada. Recount how Srila Prabhupada asserted his role as our founder Acharya. Describe our and Srila Prabhupada's position in relation to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati and the mission of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
Aye. So again, when you offer your questions and comments, try to relate them to the above learning outcomes. That will help us solidly understand the points in lesson 3, our Srila Prabhupada. And before we start the questions and comments, the transition to tomorrow's lesson, lesson 4, which is called His Mission's Roots. It's the beginning of the Abhideya lessons, which means the first 3 are deepening our relationship with Prabhupada, and the next 4, deepening our commitment to his mission. So we have to know what the mission is, so the next lesson is called His Mission's Roots. Transition, having deepened our understanding of Srila Prabhupada's relationship with all of us as our founder Acharya, Sambandha, we are now ready to enter the Abhideya phase of our series, how to act on our understanding by deepening our service to his mission. Okay, does anybody have any questions? I saw a hand right there.
Thank you so much, Prabhu, for the wonderful presentation.
Oh.
So, Prabhu, my question is from that handwritten notice which Prabhupada kept on the bathroom's door. So, in that it is mentioned that Prabhupada also mentioned that we should not indulge in frivolous sports. So, can you elaborate why Prabhupada didn't?
Oh, you must have known that, because I don't think I mentioned it. It was there, and you couldn't read it. It was too.
No,
but you know that. You know it. Yeah. Frivolous sports. Okay. Yeah. I mean, sporting or vihara. There's a verse in the Gita. Vihara, yuktahara viharasya. Vihara means recreation. One who is temperate in his habits of eating, sleeping, working, and recreation can mitigate all material pains by practicing the yoga system. You know, physical activity is necessary for the body to keep it healthy. But it's all about balance, right? So Prabhupada himself, he encouraged, when Gurukula started and they were teaching the kids, and he said, swimming is good, let them run freely, during break time. And then he taught him a game. There was a game, it must have been some Bengali kids game. It was called Kit Kit. It's something like volleyball. You know Kit Kit? Anybody? Any Bengalis?
I think it's like people are saying that it's kabaddi. So like it's this the common version is kabaddi. Like so that's Kit mostly. I saw it in a footage like a video, the documentaries, and they said kids are playing Kit here. So.
Kit Kit. What is it?
So it's like you touch the person and get.
Oh,
them,
okay. Yeah. What do we call it?
Sumo.
Yeah, it's a mix of a lot of things.
We say tag, you're it.
Yeah. You can
Tag,
call
you're
it.
it. Oh, it's the same thing. So we need recreation, but we don't need it so much that it becomes like we have this whole thing called the world of sport where people just get lost in it. And that's all they do. And Prahlad Maharaj mentions in it. He mentions it about how people spend their lives and, 20 years they spend sporting and yeah. So what is it? Frivolous sports. So frivolous just means sports that you're so into it that you neglect your spiritual life. Then it becomes frivolous. Yeah. Is that all right? Yeah. Okay. Ishan Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Yes. Could you talk a little bit about the title His Divine Grace? Because I've not heard like it in other places. We use the title like His Holiness, His Eminence. But this
Yeah.
is a very unique title which I saw. And did Prabhupada come up with it, or was it there from
Yeah,
before?
I'm trying to think now if they called Srila Bhaktisiddhanta His Divine Grace. Well, I mean, they were all Bengalis. Not all of them, but yeah, there's Srila. There's Srila. There's different levels of title. There's Srila, Sripad, and not being so, not being raised in Vedic culture. I don't know maybe you can tell me. There's Srila, Sripad. There's different levels of respect that you offer to people. Yeah. But, so, yeah, perhaps that was an English translation of those kind of we say honorifics, honoring phrases. Yeah. But the main honorific that he gave us finally was Prabhupada. Because as I read, there are many, we call our gurus, Guru Dev, Guru Maharaj, right? But Prabhupada is a guru of gurus. He's a master at whose feet all masters sit. So that's a real special super guru, mega guru. Yeah. And that's important that we keep that in perspective. So that we keep Prabhupada really in the center. Yeah. And that's how that Puranic prophecy will, that ISKCON will be the special branch. Prabhupada says right in CC, ISKCON is a branch of the Chaitanya tree, of the desire tree of devotional service. Even though it's only a branch, it has the potency because it's from Mahaprabhu and through the 6 Goswamis and coming down through Prabhupada. It has the potential to take Krishna consciousness all over the world, even though it's a branch, just a branch. That one branch, wow, that's a powerful branch. That's if we stay potent and faithful to Prabhupada with the help of our Shiksha and Diksha gurus. I can't say more about his
But I just
divine
wanted to ask, is it only used for Prabhupada? Like this title is only
Well,
reserved for Prabhupada?
during the Zonal Acharya era, after Prabhupada left, it was unfortunately applied, even Prabhupada, even one of them used the title Prabhupada. Holy smoke, this is really whacked out. This is really getting out of balance. Yeah, so I think that the last I know, there was a resolution, after the Zonal Acharya era was seen to be totally unbalanced and offensive. Then there was even a GBC resolution, no more Srilas, no more pods, no more special titles, just, yeah. I know Kalakanta Prabhu, he won't even let his disciples in Krishna house, I don't know about here, call him Gurudev. Maybe he doesn't, what should I call you, Prabhu? Just call me Prabhu, You can bow down if you want, He's really trying to make the point in a big way. I mean, disciples should be able to glorify their spiritual master and honor them, spiritual masters, Shiksha and Diksha gurus. But they shouldn't lose sight of Prabhupada's position and their own core identity as Prabhupada Nugas. Yeah. I think, depending where you are in the world, on the actual birthday of your spiritual master's Vyasa Puja, then there's some license. This might even be part of the resolution to go all out and maybe even call him Srila, or just go over the top with your glorifications, your homages, But just once a year. I mean, it got so bad in Mayapur when everybody would come to Mayapur during the Zonal Acharya era, and there were many, the new avatars. They would have a Vyasa sofa. It'd be a big, long seat, where all the anointed would sit. So it was kind of kooky, kind of crazy. So they don't do that anymore, obviously. Okay. Yes, Monil Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. I want to ask about the same letter that Prabhu was mentioning, the notice that Prabhupada stick on the bathroom. There was also mention of one must not eat food cooked by non-devotee. So I was
Did it
just
say that in there?
Yes, I've read that.
Okay, and be strictly vegetarian. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So should we consider that? So because Prabhupada mentioned it as with the regulatory principles, and when the devotees ask like what we should not do, so should we? How strictly should we follow
Okay.
that?
Well, that's a good question because it's a good example of knowing context too. So what's the context here? Swamiji is trying to get his fledgling, his new followers addicted to two things, or maybe three. Eating only his cooking. He's the cook. I mean, by November, he had also taught the art to Kirtanananda and Achyutananda. They were also good. They became good cooks. But attached only to eating Krishna prasadam. And he knew that would purify them. They shouldn't go out and eat anywhere else. And he probably was offering that. And get them addicted to chanting Hare Krishna and staying high. That was the preaching in those days. Stay high forever. When they started going out with him, to the parks and the streets to chant, which was a big deal, because it was only like in the storefront they were doing it. And then when Swamiji said in the fall, and now we're going to take it out to the parks, and they went, oh no, that's going to be really embarrassing to see us. But they just followed Prabhupada, and it was okay, And so by then they were passing out flyers. And what did the flyers say? Stay high forever. No more come downs. No more bad trips. Chant Hare Krishna. And then Kirtanananda suggested that they have that they when they go out and do that on Sundays especially, they hand out these flyers. And then they advertise that they're going to come to the temple and we're going to have a love feast. That's where the love feast started. The Sunday feast. They used to call it a love feast. And because Kirtananda said, because a lot of Americans, I don't know if they still even do this, not so much, maybe conservative or traditional families, they have a nice Sunday dinner. They have a big dinner, together. The family sits down, they say their prayers. This is probably gone by the wayside pretty much. But so we can do that too. We can have a Sunday love feast. And people will, and it became a real good way to recruit devotees, bring them to these young people to the love feasts. So he's trying to get them addicted to prasadam. Now, fast forward, okay, so that was in 66, fall. Fast forward to 1976, 10 years later, my godbrother Vyasaki, you know him, the Kirtaniya, older, has he ever been to Toronto? He's actually got a Canadian passport. He was born in England, and then he grew up in Canada, and then he's been in America. He's got 3 passports, whatever works, depending on the political situation. He's got England. So anyway, he and my godbrother Satyanarayan, they were traveling in India doing what was called the library party, just putting Prabhupada's books in libraries. They had a big success in England, or in America. It started in America, went to Europe, and then they started in India. And so it was pretty austere, actually, in India. And they were white guys, and they're trying to get Indian libraries and universities to take books. But it was austere because one reason is that, they didn't have cooking facilities. They were traveling all the time, and they met Prabhupada in Vrindavan. So they said, Prabhupada, it's really, and Prabhupada's so pleased with what they're doing, putting the books in the libraries. Prabhupada himself did that when he first published those Indian Bhagavatams. Government house in Delhi, gave one to Prime Minister Shastri, and he was getting people to put them in the libraries, or he was personally doing it. And so Prabhupada said, oh, you're having trouble with prasadam, I see. Well, first class, Prabhupada told them, is to cook yourself. But if you don't have your facilities, and you don't have time or whatever, it's hectic on the road, I understand. And the best thing is to find a life member. They were making life members in those days, and I think they still do. And you make sure that this life member is pukka in his habits, that he only offers veg, and he's devotional, and he has deities, that he offers, and then try to find that kind of a life member, and you can eat at his home. And they weren't initiated devotees or anything, but they were favorable, right? And then Prabhupada said, and if you're in a place where there's no life members around, then go to a veg restaurant, a vegetarian restaurant, and you order just obviously vegetarian food. And here's how you offer the food. And this is extraordinary. And then Prabhupada, he sang Sharira Avidyajal, which is striking because that's usually something we say after the food's been offered, right? But then it was, when Vyasaki told me that, it was consistent with what Prabhupada told Jadharani, my god sister, the first lady artist in ISKCON, who joined ISKCON. Because when she was still Judy, and she was in 26 Second Avenue, she tells us in her memory, she said she noticed Swamiji was doing bells, what we call bells. And bells was that Prabhupada was ringing a bell, and he was offering incense to a picture of Panchatattva and his Guru Maharaj. And then, so that, and he had offered the food, and then he was offering a little puja. And then Judy said, so Swamiji, what are you doing? Well, I just offered my food, and then I'm honoring them with some incense and flower, or might have just been incense actually. And then she said, and then And then what do you do? Well, then I take prasad. And then she said, well, can we do that too? And so to simplify the whole thing, Swamiji said, yes, you can do that. And or he said, well, she said, can we offer our food too? Which they didn't know about, because by the time they sat down to eat in the storefront, it had already been offered by Srila Prabhupada. So Prabhupada said, yes, you can offer your food. That's the first time they asked. It came from them, so Prabhupada was revealing. But to make it very simple, he just said, you can say this. And then he said the English translation. Oh Lord, this material body is a lump of ignorance. I think he did say the Bengali too, but then he told her what it meant. And the senses are networks of past to death. So that is what Prabhupada told Vyasaki and Satyanarayan to do in a restaurant. So now, when I'm in Tucson, once a week, we close the restaurant. Every Monday we close. We give ourselves a break, a day off. And we only eat, our only prasadam is at the restaurant. So after breakfast, we have breakfast, but then there's no lunch that day, right? So exactly 1 mile down the street from the Tucson temple, there's a place called Love and Spoonful. It's an all-vegan restaurant. So when I go to Love and Spoonful now, and I took Vyasaki there, this is where he told me. I said, how do you offer your food? He said, and he told me the story about Prabhupada and Srila of Vidyadal. So that's what I do now. That's how I offer my food at Love and Spoonful restaurant. I say the prayer because it's coming right from Prabhupada. Yeah. So everything is context, So that's what he, strictly shouldn't eat food cooked by non-devotees. But Prabhupada said you could do that if you had to. I'm not a cook. If I could cook, I would probably cook in my own place and then offer properly. But I just go down to the vegan restaurant and I do that. Because Prabhupada gave a little license for that once a week. Context is so important for what Prabhupada says and does, Okay, it's 8:35. Prabhuji, whoop, you got a thing?
So, when you started this lesson, there was a mention of a hall where Prabhupada led a kirtan and everyone just joined in.
Yeah.
And when I hear stories about Prabhupada's kirtans, I often wonder how it must feel like and how different was it from what we observe now. Is it, of course, Prabhupada's presence makes a lot of difference, but how can we go back to that time? Because that's the initial introduction to people. And when we go out for kirtans, people don't just join in like that. So what could be done differently? And for you personally also, how different did it feel like those kirtans at his time?
Well, how can we go back? We can't go back. We got to go forward. We can't, there's nobody who's Prabhupada, right? But, people who, you're going to see in one of the lessons, which one is it? To love is to cooperate. You can see how, according to our nature and what we've been born with, and how we're surrendering to Prabhupada, we can all, in our own little tiny way, reflect an aspect of Prabhupada. Like my godbrother Vyasaki, he is a musician by training, and he really is empowered by Prabhupada as a kirtaniya. And you can get a little glimpse of what a real potent kirtan is when he's leading. But he only comes once a year. And we have great kirtans in Tucson. But it's not, like when I gave that, it's not Prabhupada. When I gave that first lesson to spiritual masters and Prabhupada's in New Vrindavan, and he's, giving the Vyas Puja address, I didn't tell that before Prabhupada gave that address, we were all waiting for him to come to the pavilion to sit on that crimson throne. And so when he came, Vishnujan Maharaj, my godbrother, who you may have heard of or listened to his kirtans, legendary kirtaniya, he was leading us in a kirtan. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama. This is the tune he was singing. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So we were in heaven. He was taking us to Swarga. It was a heavenly kirtan. But then Prabhupada came, and he jumped up on the Vyasasana, and he took his kartals, and he started following along. He was following, responding as we were to Vishnujan's lead. And then at one point in the kirtan, Prabhupada stole the lead. He stole the lead from Vishnujan, because at one point Vishnujan was about to, say again how he was leading, and then all of a sudden we all hear, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, the Prabhupada tune. And we all we were in heaven, but Prabhupada took us beyond heaven. And we were stunned. We just got up and we just started moving toward Prabhupada. And we were trying to chant, but we couldn't because we were crying. It was like, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Prabhupada it was like Prabhupada and the deities on the stage were Radha Damodar, actually. Mr. John was traveling Radha Damodar. And it was like Prabhupada and Radha Damodar were opening up the whole spiritual sky and just flooding the place with Krishna Prem. And we didn't know what hit us. We were like, and then finally you hear Prabhupada bring the kirtan to a close, and he goes, Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Pribhat, the Premadvani prayers. And we just dropped to the grass and we were like swooning. What was that? So we can't imitate that. But by hearing Prabhupada's kirtans and by following him, we can be empowered in our own way, just like writing too. Kirtan is a word. It means to describe, to glorify, and Prabhupada talks about this, like how Vyasadeva, he was doing kirtan when he spoke, the Bhagavatam, when he spoke the natural commentary in the Vedanta Sutra. So according to, we can be empowered in any service by surrendering to Prabhupada. And we don't have to worry about trying to go back or be like it was in 1967 we got to go forward and in our own way and carry it in our own way. What did Prabhupada tell us? What can I... as Prabhupada was leaving us, one devotee asked Prabhupada, what can I do when you're gone? When you've left us physically? And Prabhupada said, you can go where I can't go, where I didn't go, where I can't go. To every town and village, you can go. So we have to do that. We have to, advance the movement. And it'll be good. I'm sure you have nice kirtans here. Maybe, of course, it's not Prabhupada, but again, it doesn't have to be Prabhupada. It's the whole disciplic succession empowering us. So, like sometimes we would say, Srila Prabhupada, a devotee said, you can hear him say, it was Gurudas on a morning walk. Can you tell us about Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur? What can I say? He was a Vaikuntha man. If I could be, that was about his Guru Maharaj. He was a Vaikuntha man. And then on another occasion, it was about Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And he said, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he was super, he was like, next to him, I'm nothing. He wrote 100 books and, he envisioned the whole Hare Krishna movement, GBC and the prophecies, the Adbhuta Mandir, and he foresaw us coming together with all these people from all over the world and chanting Hare Krishna, and super visionary, super empowered. Anyway, we just have to go forward and we'll be fully satisfied. All right. Any more questions or comments? And we can hold it as long as you want, and the prasad will still be there, right? Right.
Prabhu, you mentioned that when Prabhupada's disciples asked if anyone could replace them, he said that if someone else comes and tells you something, you'll be all confused.
Yes.
And then I remember that when he took some of his disciples back to India, a lot of them like met a lot of different people, and they caught up on a lot of different things. And then Prabhupada um, told them exactly what not is not to be done. Can you tell us some stories from that time?
Yeah. Uh, well, one thing is, when he said, "You will be confused," that was a warning. But unfortunately, after Prabhupada left us physically, some of our leaders actually went to one of his godbrothers to ask him what to do, because it was very hard to manage things after Prabhupada left. And how should the gurus relate to the GBC, for example? That was a big key question. So the answer from the godbrother of Prabhupada, and this was a good godbrother. This was not some, scoundrel or rascal. This was a good godbrother. And he said, well, you should form an acharya board. The people who are gurus, they should be a little independent. And so the GBC never actually did this, but this was the advice of someone who was also involved with the breakup of the Gaudiya Math. So they went to this person who was good, but still, Prabhupada's warning them early on, that don't go to them for advice, because look what they did to my spiritual master's institution. My spiritual master was no ordinary. He saved me. And he tried to save everybody, but they didn't follow him. As soon as he disappeared, you're going to see this in lesson 4, what happened. I mean, you know about it, but you'll see it very dramatically, what happened. And therefore, the whole thing fragmented. Even before Srila Bhaktisiddhanta left, there were a couple of camps preparing, to compete for who was going to replace Srila Bhaktisiddhanta and be the new, leader. But you don't replace a founder acharya. You simply cooperate, serve his mission. You initiate your own disciples, but you cooperate. Bhaktisiddhanta said, work conjointly. That was the word Bhaktisiddhanta used, conjointly. Form a GBC. They didn't do it. It was a half-hearted attempt, but it quickly collapsed under pressure from these two camps who were trying to compete to control the Gaudiya Math. And because neither of those camps was authorized by Bhaktisiddhanta, they fell down. They fell. And it became scandalous. They were fighting in the courts over the assets of the Gaudiya Math. I mean, it was just, yeah. So, I forget your question now.
Stories from the time when Prabhupada took them to India.
Yeah, so when he took them to India, one of the things that happened when Prabhupada took disciples to India, they started seeing all these books by Bhaktivinoda and Bhaktisiddhanta, in English, in the Gaudiya Maths. And this is also in To Love Is to Cooperate. Yes, To Love Is to Cooperate. You're going to hear, it's an audio slide, Prabhupada's reaction to them asking him if we can read those books. So So that's a cliffhanger. Let's wait till you hear it in context of what Prabhupada responds. And yeah, it's very interesting. So, yeah, what else? At the same time, Prabhupada would always stick up for his Western disciples, because the Indians would complain, they don't know any etiquette, or they're too aggressive and loud, and they're just uncultured, uncouth. Prabhupada said, yes, that's their background, but they're following my instructions, and therefore they're becoming purified. So don't criticize them, and just be grateful that they're trying to become devotees, and they're trying to help me spread it back to India, because India was forgetting its culture. So the best place was in Surat, in Gujarat, when the whole town turned out. And they shut down the schools, and the mayor of Surat declared a holiday because Bhaktivedanta Swami's here with his disciples, and they were glorifying the disciples, with garlands. You've seen the movies, right? And wow, it's just so wonderful how they appreciated the devotees because of Swami Maharaj. Yeah, they were good. Okay, are we done? Okay, so tomorrow again we're going to look at, his mission's roots. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Bhaktivinoda ki jai.